Hey guys, welcome to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we are back with a Rakan basic guide. Now Rakan is a very interesting support. He has some ability interactions with Xayah. Of course they came out as a pair, but he is a support champion that can build either AP or utility, and he is a very good mix between an engager and an enchanter. He has healing and shielding, but he also has insane amounts of CC capable of hitting all 5 members of the enemy team with both his W knockup as well as the charm on his ultimate. So he's a really unique support compared to many others in a sense that he can play the role of both an engager and an enchanter. So as usual, we're going to hit into the practice tool to talk about Rakan's skills. Okay, so first things first, we're not gonna actually hit to our usual spot next to the tower. We're actually gonna go all the way back to the river, which is where we used to do these kind of skill rundowns previously, but we decided not to anymore because it took too far to walk. But for today, we're gonna actually do this because we need a lot of space to spawn a lot of enemy and ally dummies. So let's actually go ahead and do that. So before that, let's put ourselves to maximum level first. Okay, so we're first gonna go over his Q. So his Q is a linear skill shot that can be used on enemies. Basically what it does is a little bit of AP damage, as you guys can see here. Boom, and if you hit an enemy, you can see the circle that takes 3 seconds to proc is gonna give you a heal. So basically, another thing you can do is, if you touch an ally with this heal will proc instantly on both yourself and your ally. So for example, I hit him here, I walk to this ally, it's gonna give my ally the heal instantly. So that is how his Q works. Now I forgot to actually mention his passive, but his passive is basically a shield. You guys take a look at his shield around his health bar over here. That is his passive. When it gets destroyed, it does go onto cooldown, and it will take a while to regenerate. So let me just remove this shield. You can see that the cooldown on your shield is here, the Fey Feathers. Of course I'm at level 15, so this cooldown is going to be really quick. And you can see here, let's just actually see the shield coming up. So when the cooldown refreshes, this is going to regenerate the shield, as you guys can see here. So again, you can demonstrate the heal. You proc the heal, you go to your ally, it procs the heal instantly. So here you have his W. So his W is of course an AoE spell that can hit multiple enemies, and it hits people in a circle. So you're gonna jump to the spot, and after a very brief delay, you're gonna actually knock enemies up. So as I mentioned just now, this can actually work on multiple enemies. So for example, if I hit this entire group of 3 enemies, it's gonna knock all 3 of them up, including the Skull Crab, which happened to walk into the knockup. So his next ability is his E. So his E, when you use, it's basically a dash to an ally champion. If you use it on Xayah, the range is slightly increased. And basically what this does is you have 2 charges of E, you can dash twice. What happens here is you dash to an ally and you give the ally a shield. Now because this is an enemy dummy, he has a lot of health, so the shield is not very obvious. But here you can, oh, I spawned the wrong dummy, but anyways, let's spawn an ally dummy. So here you can see that basically what you can do is you can dash to an ally and then dash to another ally. You can also dash to the same ally twice, for example. And that is basically what his E does. So his ultimate, a little bit complicated to explain, but basically what it does is, when you pop it, you're gonna go into this state where you have this glowy thing around you, and you're gonna run faster by a little bit. You're gonna get extra movement speed. When you hit an enemy, you're gonna gain an extra burst of movement speed, and you're gonna charm up the enemy. So this is going to basically cause the enemy to run after you. Essentially, the enemy gets CC'd. And basically like this, you guys can see here, you basically hit the enemies, they get charmed, and they start running after you. Although when they get charmed, they get slowed as well. So it's not like an RE charm where they're going to follow you very quickly. They're actually going to follow you, but barely. Like they're only going to move like a step or 2. So yeah, so the movement speed that you gain, of course, does decay over time. And yeah, so that is pretty much it for Rakan's ultimate. So now let's actually discuss Rakan's leveling order. So I'm going to reset myself to level 0. Now, honestly, the first 3 levels of Rakan, what you want to take is a lot playstyle dependent and a lot situational kind of dependent. Because if you get into a level 1 fight, honestly taking E could be the thing that wins you the fight, because giving that shield to your ally could be what wins you the fight. Most of the time, however, you do want to go for W at level 1 because this allows you to engage on the enemy at level 1 and knock them out, as you guys can see here. But for some people who don't want to engage at level 1, you can also, of course, take Q level 1 just to try to poke enemies out, like so. So really, you can take anything at level 1, but most of the time, let's assume that you've taken W. So you generally, if you've taken W at level 1, you generally want to take E so that when you jump in onto enemies like this, you can jump back out with your E. So of course at level 3, you just take whatever you have not taken yet. And for the maxing order, you always want to max W first, because this is of course your main engage tool, and you always want to have it as much damage and low cooldown, so on as possible. Then for what you max second, generally you want to max your E second, which is of course the dash, and generally you max Q last. However, if you're playing AP Rakan, I generally think it's better to actually max Q second instead of E second, so it depends on what kind of build you're running. Okay, so next up, we're going to talk about Rakan's combos. So, for Rakan's combos, basically he has a basic combo and an all-in combo. I'm gonna show you guys both. So his basic combo is WQE. So let me demonstrate that onto this ally dummy, onto this enemy dummy. Sorry. So basically, you W in, you kill the enemy, and then you dash out to an ally. That's basically the main combo that Rakan has. This is Rakan's basic combo. Now, of course, his basic combo only uses one E, so you can actually add in another E into his basic combo. And basically, let's say I'm trying to engage on this enemy over here, and I have this ally over here. I can basically jump to this ally, do the W, Q, and then dash back to this ally for my basic combo. Now, if you have Electrocute as your rune, which I do have here, you can throw in an extra auto after the E. So basically, for example, you W, Q, auto to proc Electrocute, and then you dash out to an ally. Of course, if you have Electrocute, you always want to add in the auto for the extra damage. And if you don't have Electrocute, the auto is kind of optional. You can do the auto if you want. Otherwise, it's fine as well. As you can see here, that by the time your CC duration ends, you know, if you stand there to auto, you could get caught out by the enemy after he comes out of CC. So that is basically the combo there. So now I'm actually going to back, because for the other combos I actually need my proto belt to demonstrate the combos. So here I'm going to actually pick up my proto belt, which I will of course be using for the combos. Okay, so back to of course the dummy area. Let's reset the aggro from these wolves. So the next combo is what I like to call the all-in combo. Basically, it's literally the same story as your normal combo, but except that you're throwing in an extra R at the front. Now, it's really important to R before you W, because if you guys notice, when you W, there is this very brief point in time where, if you guys look here, the enemy can flash out of your W, but if you R before you W, the enemy cannot do this. So what do I mean by this? Basically, when you pop your R and you W, they're going to be charmed and then knocked up instantly. So they cannot dodge the knockup because they're charmed at the moment, and they cannot basically avoid the knockup. So basically, your all-in combo is basically RWQE. So of course, you go in with your R, W in, Q, and then you E back out, like so. Now that probably wasn't the best because I didn't really E properly, but once again, you can R, W, Q, and then you dash back out. You don't have to auto because the R counts as 1 point in damage, so this is going to be able to proc your Electrocute. So of course, same as the basic combo, you can of course toss in your E at the beginning as well. So you can, for example, R, E, W, Q, and then you just dash back over like that. So you might be wondering, where does the proto belt come in? Well, the proto belt actually comes in literally anywhere. So sometimes, let's say they're barely out of range like this, and let's say you don't have this ally here. Oops, I accidentally jumped. But if you don't have this ally here and you want to hit that guy, what you can actually do is you can R, proto belt, and then, okay, the auto target went to that guy, but let me just demonstrate that without auto target. So you can R, proto belt, then you can jump here and hit these enemies here. I believe that all of them now are stacked up into each other because of the charm, but you can hit all these enemies here by using your proto belt to gap close, and of course you can also do this like for other uses as well. So for example, you can toss in a proto belt like this. So for example, there is these group of 3 enemies here. Let me just maybe respawn these 3 enemies like that. So you can see this is this group of 3 enemies here. What I can actually do is I can actually RW proto belt to get this last guy, and then I can basically just do whatever I want after that. So you can literally throw in your proto belt anywhere. You could even do something like, you know, engage like this, then you proto belt back to jump to this ally, for example. It's basically, proto belt is just to give you extra range, and it's a very useful tool to include inside your combos. So now that we've gone through all of Rakan's combos, I'm going to go through some tips and tricks. So nothing too fancy here for the tips and tricks, but the first tip and trick is with Q. So Q is actually a really difficult skill shot to aim because it's very predictable when you want to Q, because if Rakan is walking up to you, the only 2 possibilities of what he wants to do, he either wants to go in on you with his W or he wants to poke you with Q. Generally, it's quite predictable what he's trying to do. So if you're trying to walk up to Q an enemy, it's really difficult to do. So what you normally want to do is you want to CC the enemy before you go for Q. So for example, you W and then you Q while they're airborne so they cannot dodge your Q. Now, of course, you don't want to do the WQ if you are not intending to actually go in, but you only want to do that when you are intending to go in, but you can, of course, combo with other people's CC. For example, if Jin roots a target, you can, of course, just throw your Q out to get a little free poke and free healing for you and your ADC or whoever else is with you. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is some alternative uses of your ability. So most people will use their W to engage like this, but another usage of W is, don't forget, you can use it to run away as well. So if these group of enemies are chasing you, you can use it to W over a wall and run away. And same thing kind of goes with your Q. So most people use Q to either escape or to get into a position to engage, like so. However, don't forget that another usage is, for example, if enemies are attacking your ally, you can literally just W your ally and give them the shield just to try to protect them, and you don't necessarily have to use it for yourself or the mobility. And finally, the last one is a little bit similar to the W one, where most people use their R to, of course, go in and engage, which is, of course, the main usage of R. But if the situation is desperate, like if you're getting chased down by a group of enemies, don't forget you can actually use R to just get more movement speed to just run away, because R gives you a lot of extra movement speed to actually run away with. So that's actually going to be really, really helpful. And now the last tip I have for you overall on Rakan has to do with a more kind of overall kind of perspective, which is basically vision. Now Rakan, whenever you see him, Rakan is a relatively one-dimensional champion. He just wants to go in on you and engage on you, assuming his team is ahead and they can kill you. So what you normally want to do as Rakan, you normally want to make use of vision. So you always want to like hide in bushes, stay out of vision, and then you can just jump to an ally to, of course, engage. So take, for example, I want to engage on this enemy. I'm hiding in this bush so he can't see me. He doesn't know I'm here. I can then jump to this ally and then instantly go to engage on him and then jump back out. And he's basically CC'd and engaged upon before he even knows it. Let's say if that's a very valuable target like an enemy ADC, I can even, for example, do something like I R out of vision and then I instantly just engage on him, and that guy is probably dead if I have an ally with me before he even knows that I'm there. So that is it for the Rakan basic guide. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and goodbye.